Throughout Bleach, Ichigo's journey with his hollow powers has been a roller coaster of emotional transformation, but perhaps no change was more controversial than what had happened to his hollow mask after his battle against Ulquiorra. Many fans had dismissed this to be just a simple design change, going from the complicated horizontal red markings to these two basic black stripes on his hollow mask, but in actuality this change represented something far deeper. The redesign of Ichigo's hollow mask wasn't Kubo getting lazy with the artwork, it was a deliberate visual representation of Ichigo's psychological state of mind at this point in the story. You could even say that the hollow mask is visually conveying his complicated relationship with his inner hollow. Kubo had masterfully used Ichigo's hollow mask as a storytelling device, as he used it to convey Ichigo's regression rather than his progression at this point in the story. In today's video, I'll be talking about the most disappointing change to Ichigo's hollow mask and how Kubo was brilliantly able to convey Ichigo's trauma with his fear of his own powers, and why this specific change in Ichigo's hollow mask, where he has those two black stripes running down it, is actually one of the greatest character development moments within Bleach, which a lot of viewers have simply overlooked. Now, before diving into the video, I have actually launched an all new channel called Super Alpha EX. Now on this channel I'll be doing reviews, commentaries and gaming related content, so definitely go and subscribe to that channel. I've already posted my first video on my thoughts on the Nintendo Switch 2. The support that all of you have shown has allowed me to branch out and create content on other things that I'm passionate about, so I'd really love for all of you to follow me over onto Super Alpha EX so that you can find out what other things I'm really passionate about. So yeah, do go and subscribe to that channel and check out the first video that I've already posted. So when we first see Ichigo donning his hollow mask against Byakuya during the Substitute Shinigami arc, this version of his hollow mask had just 3 simple red stripes on the left side. Now this wasn't an accident, as this visually represented the internal struggle between his Shinigami and hollow powers, as the hollow mask was visually representing just how much control his hollow side had over his Shinigami powers. His inner hollow via the hollow mask was marking its territory in a way. As Ichigo trained with the Vizards and started to battle increasingly powerful opponents like Grimmjow, something really interesting had started to happen. Those red stripes ended up multiplying and expanding down the length of the hollow mask, and by the time that he has his third battle against Grimmjow in Hueco Mundo, the markings on his hollow mask had grown to cover almost the entire left side. Each new stripe represented Ichigo's increasing control and integration of his hollow abilities into his moveset. You start to notice a pattern. As Ichigo had grown more comfortable with his hollow powers, the mask had reflected this growth visually via these hollow markings. The expanded red markings showed Ichigo gradually accepting this part of himself, with the pattern becoming more intricate and complex, just like his relationship with his hollow powers. But suddenly, his battle against Ulquiorra had changed everything. When Ichigo had then tried to summon his hollow mask after his Vasto Lorde transformation, it appeared in a dramatically different way. We just see these 2 thick black vertical stripes running down his hollow mask, one on each side of the mask. While symmetrical designs typically suggest balance and harmony, this wasn't the case with Ichigo's hollow mask. This simplified pattern on his mask wasn't as a result of evolution, it was actually a regression. It was a physical manifestation of the psychological trauma which Ichigo was experiencing following his full hollow Vasto Lorde transformation. Ichigo's psychological trauma had massively impacted the amount of power that he was able to control. In a way, he was afraid of his hollow powers after what had just happened, so he was reluctant to rely upon them out of this fear that he may transform into that full hollow Vasto Lorde form again. Ichigo's battle against Ulquiorra above the canopy of Los Noches had resulted in him sustaining a massive blast through his chest after Ulquiorra had fired a Cerro Oscuras, something which nobody would have expected. During this moment, Ichigo had actually died, but he then started to undergo a massive transformation. Unlike his previous controlled Hollowfication attempts where he dons a hollow mask to boost his Shinigami powers, this full hollow Vasto Lorde transformation was entirely different. Here, his inner hollow had completely overtaken his body as he was on the brink of death, as his inner hollow transforms Ichigo into a Vasto Lorde class hollow, complete with the horns and long flowing hair and that terrifying power which makes his previous mask enhanced form look pathetic by comparison. While in this berserker state, Ichigo had effortlessly dominated Suguna Itapa Ulquiorra, a form that had previously made Ichigo look like a helpless child. Now the crucial difference was that Ichigo wasn't conscious while he was in this full hollow form. He had no awareness or control during this transformation. He was just a passenger in his own body as his instinctive hollow side had taken over, brutally mutilating Ulquiorra and even attacking Uryu when he had tried to intervene in order to help Ichigo to get back to his senses. The full hollow Vastolore transformation wasn't just a power-up, it was a horrifying loss of oneself. When Ichigo finally regains consciousness and realizes that he ended up becoming the very monster that he had always feared, it creates a deep sense of psychological trauma. He hadn't just crossed a line here, he totally destroyed it, becoming something unrecognizable even to himself. The trauma from this transformation had fundamentally changed how Ichigo viewed his hollow powers, and this would manifest visibly in the new design of his hollow mask. During the Fate Karakura Town arc, when Ichigo dons his hollow mask against Aizen, we see that it has a new look with that basic two-stripe design. This wasn't again as a result of evolution, it was proof of Ichigo's regression and the psychological blockage which was affecting him. According to what Kubo said in a recent Club Outside question and answer, he had stated that if Ichigo had properly hollowified after his Ulquiorra fight, then he would have been able to access the full Vastolore form which had defeated Ulquiorra, but with complete conscious control of it. Kubo reveals this in question 578. Now, Ichigo's fear of his own potential, of what he might become if he had fully embraced that power again, created a mental barrier which had prevented him from accessing his true capabilities. This self-imposed restriction manifested physically in several ways. Firstly, is the change in Ichigo's hollow mask design, as it's been simplified massively from those complicated red stripes that were growing down the length of his hollow mask to just two simple stripes. This represents Ichigo unconsciously simplifying and restricting his connection to his hollow powers. Second, the markings of his hollow mask had become perfectly symmetrical, as we see two identical stripes, one on each side. This wasn't natural integration, but forced containment. This suggests that Ichigo was trying to impose rigid control rather than truly harmonizing with his hollow nature. Now, the third change which you'll notice is that the color of the markings on Ichigo's hollow mask changed from this vibrant red to this stark black color, and we see this represented within the color version of the manga. Red is used to depict the passionate, dynamic nature of Ichigo's fighting spirit and his growing acceptance of his hollow powers, while black symbolizes formality, rigidity, and emotional distance, perfectly capturing how Ichigo was feeling at this point in the story as he was trying to contain and restrict his hollow side rather than integrating with it. If you remember at the very beginning of the Arrancar arc, before Ichigo had even trained with the Vizards, when he had donned his hollow mask against Yami, the mask had felt noticeably heavier. This was Ichigo at an early point in the story rejecting his hollow side. Something similar happens when Ichigo dons his hollow mask within Fate Karakura Town against Aizen. He struggles to maintain the hollow mask as he couldn't even resummon it after the mask was broken. These weren't signs of physical weakness, but of psychological resistance. Ichigo's own mind was sabotaging his access to his hollow powers because he was terrified of losing control again. People really thought that the change in Ichigo's hollow mask following his Vastolore form meant that he had acquired a power-up. This is why I keep saying that this change in Ichigo's hollow mask wasn't as a result of evolution, it was actually regression. Tensa Zangetsu had even confirmed this when Ichigo entered his inner world to learn the final Getsuga Tensho. Tensa Zangetsu explicitly states that the limitations of Ichigo's new hollow mask had stemmed directly from his fear of the full hollow Vastolore form which he had used against Ulquiorra. This fear had created a mental block and it had prevented him from properly hollowifying, essentially crippling a major aspect of Ichigo's powers. This is why a lot of people were frustrated with this change in Ichigo's hollow mask design, because they didn't understand the psychological significance of the altered mask appearance. This hollow mask didn't mean that Ichigo had actually gotten weaker, it was because he was afraid of his own strength. There was no change to Ichigo's potential power. The irony here is that by trying to protect himself and others from the monstrous Vastolore form, Ichigo had inadvertently handicapped himself against the threats which had required the full power of his inner hollow. Just imagine what would have happened if Ichigo used that full hollow form against Aizen during the fake Karakura Town arc. It would have been absolutely insane, and I think that Ichigo may well have had a solid chance before the Hokyoku had truly assimilated with his body and had started to evolve Aizen further into those Hokyoku evolved forms. I think Kubo does a really great job via Ichigo's character to showcase how trauma works, how the mind ends up creating these protective barriers that can end up becoming the limitations themselves. Originally, the markings on Ichigo's hollow mask showcased an evolving pattern which represented dynamic growth. The new mask with those two horizontal lines represents rigidity and restriction. Now, the color symbolism plays a significant role here too. In visual storytelling, red usually represents strength and vitality, as this perfectly captures Ichigo's fighting spirit and his growing acceptance of his inner hollow as he was training with the Vizards and following his King and the Horse speech with Hollow Ichigo. He had slowly started to don his hollow mask for longer periods of time, eventually accessing his incredible hollow powers but under controlled conditions. Now, the shift to the black markings suggests that there is restriction here and there's emotional distance from his hollow powers, as it shows that he was trying to control his hollow side rather than embracing it. You could even say that these two perfect stripes that run down his hollow mask could be interpreted as forced division between Ichigo's Shinigami and hollow natures. They have been separated by trauma rather than working in harmony. Previously, his hollow mask design showcased complexity and integration through its expanding markings, but this new design represents oversimplification and division. What I love about Kubo's way of storytelling is that he doesn't need to convey all of this through lengthy exposition. He showcases psychological trauma via visual storytelling through the design of the hollow mask, allowing attentive viewers to understand Ichigo's inner struggle through visual storytelling. Based upon Kubo's comments and the hints through the story, Ichigo's proper evolution should have been gaining the ability to consciously access this full hollow Vastalore form while he is in full conscious control of it. Rather than wearing a mask as a supplementary tool for his Shinigami powers, he should have been able to transform fully into that Vastalore form, combining its raw power with his tactical mind and moral compass, which would have prevented him from hurting his own friends, and it would have stopped him from going overboard against his opponents. We do actually see an example of what this integration between Ichigo's inner hollow and his Shinigami powers would have looked like during his battle with Zangetsu in his inner world. Tensa Zangetsu merges with Ichigo's inner hollow as he now dons a hollow mask with those horns, as this showcases the potential for Ichigo to also access this Vastalore form with complete consciousness and control. Merged, hollowified Tensa Zangetsu wasn't just using Ichigo's hollow powers as a tool, but instead he had embraced them as a part of himself. Ichigo genuinely needed to do the same, as this would have been an excellent culmination of Ichigo's journey into self-acceptance, allowing him to wield his full potential without fear. Instead, because of Ichigo's trauma and fear, he had taken a step back here. Rather than evolving towards greater integration with his powers, he compartmentalized his hollow powers, and he thus started using a weaker version of his hollow mask. And after the mask had broken, he had struggled to create another hollow mask while he was facing off against Aizen. It wouldn't be until much later on in the story, during the 1000-year Blood War arc, where Ichigo would finally begin to properly integrate his hollow powers again, and this is during his battle against Yhwach, as he had achieved a balanced form which incorporates elements of his Vastalore transformation. This transformation would come to be known as the Horn of Salvation form, and this is where we see that horn appear on Ichigo's head and the whites of one of his eyes turning completely black. Here he hasn't lost consciousness, he retains control over himself while wielding the full potential of his hollow powers. I believe that Kubo does a fantastic job of showcasing the progression of Ichigo's powers, so while some people believe that this change in Ichigo's hollow mask was supposed to represent a growth in his power, it was in fact a regression. So yeah, Kubo conveys character development through this incredible way of visual storytelling, and I do hope that you now understand the significance and the meaning behind the changes in Ichigo's hollow mask appearance. appearance. If there's anything that I've forgotten to mention about this particular version of Ichigo's hollow mask with those two black vertical stripes, then let me know by continuing the discussion in the comments. And lastly, thank you for making it to the end of this video, and I cannot wait to see you in my next Bleach video.
A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.